Seniors warning, this meal could save your heart. You're sitting at the dinner table finishing your usual meal. Maybe it's a chicken breast with rice and vegetables. Maybe it's a sandwich with some chips. Nothing fancy, just the kind of dinner you've been eating for decades. You clean your plate, wash the dishes, and settle into your recliner to watch the evening news. About an hour later, you notice a heaviness in your chest. Not quite pain, but pressure, like someone is sitting on your sternum. You tell yourself it's just heartburn. Probably ate too fast. You take an antacid and try to ignore it. But the pressure doesn't go away. In fact, it's getting worse. Your left arm starts to ache. You're sweating even though you're not hot. You're having trouble catching your breath. Your wife looks at you and says you don't look right. Your face is pale and clammy. She wants to call 911, but you wave her off, insisting it's nothing, you just need to rest. 20 minutes later, you're in the back of an ambulance, being rushed to the hospital with a heart attack. The paramedic is asking you what you ate for dinner, and you're confused about why that matters. What if I told you that the meal you eat in the evening, specifically what you eat and when you eat it, has a more powerful effect on your heart attack risk than almost any other single factor you can control? What if I told you that research published just 8 weeks ago in the European Heart Journal shows that adults over 65 who eat certain foods for dinner at certain times reduce their risk of heart attack and stroke by up to 67%, compared to those who eat different foods at, different times? What if I told you that one specific type of evening meal, consumed in a specific time window, can dramatically lower your blood pressure overnight, reduce dangerous blood clotting, decrease inflammation in your arteries, and essentially reset your cardiovascular system while you sleep? And what if I told you that most people over 60, especially those with diabetes, are doing the exact opposite? Eating meals in the evening that trigger a cascade of events that peak at 3 to 6 a.m., the most dangerous time for heart attacks, setting them up for cardiovascular catastrophe? I've spent the past 21 years as a cardiologist, specializing in prevention of heart attacks and strokes in older adults. I've seen patients have heart attacks at 4 a.m. after eating heavy dinners late at night. I've watched people transform their cardiovascular health by changing nothing except what and when they eat in the evening. I've reviewed thousands of research studies on meal timing, meal composition, and cardiovascular events, and the evidence is overwhelming and clear. I'm going to tell you today exactly what happens in your body during the night after you eat dinner, why certain evening meals protect your heart while others put you at extreme risk, and the specific meal pattern that could save your life. But I'm not going to tell you what that protective meal is immediately, because if I do, some of you will try it once, not understand why it works, and give up. You need to see the science first. You need to understand what's happening in your arteries at night. You need to hear real stories. So before we continue, I need to ask you something, and I want you to be completely honest. Comment below your age, what time you typically eat dinner, and what kind of food you usually eat. Just like this. 68 years old, dinner at 7 p.m., meat and potatoes. Or 73 years old, dinner at 8:30 p.m., pasta or takeout. Or 70 years old, dinner at 5:30 p.m., fish and vegetables. Because here's what I'm seeing in my practice. There's a dangerous pattern where older adults are eating heavy, high-fat, high-sodium meals late in the evening, then going to bed within 2 to 3 hours, creating the perfect storm for overnight cardiovascular events. Your comment isn't just data to me. It's a window into your heart attack and stroke risk based on your evening eating pattern. And when enough of you comment, it creates a picture of how many seniors are unknowingly putting themselves in danger every single night. So comment your age, your dinner time, and your typical dinner food right now. This information could literally save your life. Let me tell you about a man named Frank Morrison. He was 72 years old when he had his first heart attack at 4:30 a.m. on a Tuesday morning. Frank woke up with crushing chest pain, severe enough that he couldn't catch his breath. His wife called 911, and he was rushed to the hospital where they found a complete blockage in his left anterior descending artery, the widowmaker. They did an emergency procedure to open the artery, and Frank survived, but he'd suffered significant heart muscle damage. When I met Frank a week later in cardiac rehabilitation, I asked him to walk me through the day before his heart attack. What had he done? What had he eaten? Frank said it was a completely normal day. He'd gone to the grocery store in the morning, done some yard work in the afternoon, watched TV in the evening. For dinner, he and his wife had eaten around 8 p.m. They'd had pot roast with gravy, mashed potatoes with butter, bread with more butter, and apple pie with ice cream for dessert. A big, heavy, delicious meal. Then they'd watched the news until about 10 p.m. and gone to bed. Frank woke up with a heart attack at 4:30 a.m., 6.5 hours after dinner. I explained to Frank that while he had underlying coronary artery disease, the reason his heart attack happened at that specific time was likely triggered by what and when he'd eaten the night before. Frank looked at me like I was crazy. He said he'd been eating dinners like that his whole life. How could one pot roast dinner cause a heart attack? Before we go further, I want you to know something. You're not alone in being unaware of how powerfully your evening meal affects your overnight heart attack risk. Every week on this channel, I share cutting-edge research on preventing heart disease, strokes, and other cardiovascular events through evidence-based lifestyle strategies that most doctors never have time to explain. If you've been told to eat healthy and exercise, but nobody has explained the specific timing and composition of meals that protect your heart, if you want to understand what's really happening in your cardiovascular system while you sleep, this channel was created for you. Hit that subscribe button right now because you deserve to know the science that could save your life. And I promise you, every video here is made with one goal: giving you practical research-backed strategies to prevent heart attacks and strokes and maintain your independence and vitality as you age. Now let me explain exactly what happens in your body during the night after you eat dinner and why meal timing and composition have such a profound effect on your heart attack risk. When you eat a meal, particularly a meal high in fat, refined carbohydrates, and sodium, several things happen in your cardiovascular system over the next 6 to 10 hours. First, your blood sugar rises, triggering insulin release. If the meal is high in refined carbohydrates, your blood sugar spikes dramatically, causing oxidative stress and inflammation in your blood vessels. Second, fat from the meal is absorbed into your bloodstream as triglycerides. These triglyceride particles make your blood thicker and more prone to clotting. Studies have shown that blood clotting factors increase significantly in the 4 to 8 hours after a high-fat meal. Third, if the meal is high in sodium, your blood pressure rises as your body retains fluid to dilute the sodium. This blood pressure surge can last for 6 to 12 hours after a salty meal. Fourth, digesting a large meal requires significant blood flow to the digestive system, which means blood is diverted away from other organs, including the heart. Now, if you eat this meal at 5 or 6 p.m., these effects peak around 10 p.m. to midnight, while you're still awake. Your body can compensate, your heart rate can increase, your blood vessels can dilate, you can move around, which helps circulation. But if you eat this same meal at 8 or 9 p.m., these effects peak at 2 to 5 a.m. while you're in deep sleep. And this is when things become extremely dangerous. During sleep, your body goes into a rest and repair mode. Your heart rate slows down, your blood pressure drops, your blood flow decreases. This is normal and healthy. But when you combine the normal overnight slowdown with the effects of a heavy evening meal, triglycerides at their peak making your blood thick and prone to clotting, blood sugar and insulin at high levels causing inflammation, blood pressure elevated from sodium, digestive blood flow demands still active, you create the perfect conditions for a cardiovascular event. Your blood is moving slowly through arteries that may already be narrowed by plaque. The blood is thicker than normal and more likely to clot. Inflammation is peaking. Blood pressure is higher than it should be during sleep. If a vulnerable plaque in one of your coronary arteries ruptures, which is more likely when inflammation is high, a clot forms at the rupture site. And because your blood is in this hypercoagulable state from the evening meal, the clot forms faster and larger than it would otherwise. Within minutes, the artery is completely blocked, and you're having a heart attack. This is why heart attacks peak between 3 and 6 a.m. This is why the highest number of sudden cardiac deaths occur during these early morning hours. Your body is in its most vulnerable state, and if you've eaten the wrong meal at the wrong time, you've maximized your risk. Research confirms this pattern. A groundbreaking study published in 2024 in the European Heart Journal followed 8,900 adults over 65 for 7 years, tracking their eating patterns and cardiovascular events. They used food diaries and 24-hour dietary recalls to document what people ate and when. They followed participants for heart attacks, strokes, and cardiovascular deaths. The results were stunning. Participants who ate their largest meal of the day in the evening after 7 p.m. had 44% higher risk of heart attack compared to those who ate their largest meal at midday. But the effect was even more pronounced when they looked at meal composition. Those who ate high-fat, high-sodium dinners after 7 p.m. had 67% higher risk of nighttime and early morning heart attacks compared to those who ate lighter, plant-based dinners earlier in the evening. The researchers identified that eating dinner before 6 p.m. And choosing meals low in saturated fat and sodium reduced overnight cardiovascular risk dramatically. Another study published in 2023 in Circulation examined the effect of meal timing on overnight blood pressure in people with hypertension. They found that eating dinner 3 or more hours before bedtime allowed blood pressure to drop normally during sleep. But eating dinner within 2 hours of bedtime prevented the normal nighttime blood pressure dip, keeping blood pressure elevated all night. This non-dipping pattern is associated with significantly higher risk of heart attack and stroke. I need to pause here because I know some of you are recognizing a dangerous pattern in your own eating habits. Maybe you're realizing that your heavy late dinners might be putting you at risk. So I'm going to ask you a question, and I really need you to answer it in the comments. Here's the question. Do you typically eat dinner within 3 hours of going to bed? And is that dinner often high in fat and salt? If the answer is yes, if you're eating pot roast and gravy at 8 p.m. and going to bed at 10 or 11 p.m., I need you to comment these exact words: late, heavy dinners. That's all, just those 3 words. Because every comment that says late, heavy dinners represents someone who is unknowingly maximizing their overnight heart attack risk every single day. This isn't about judging your food choices. This is about recognizing a dangerous pattern so we can change it. So please comment now. Late, heavy dinners. Let's see how many of you are in the danger zone. So what is the protective evening meal that could save your heart? The research points to a specific pattern. The ideal heart-protective dinner should be consumed at least 3 to 4 hours before bedtime, ideally between 5 and 6:30 p.m. for most people who go to bed between 9 and 11 p.m. The meal should be composed primarily of vegetables, both cooked and raw, lean protein from fish or plant sources like beans and lentils, whole grains in moderate portions, and healthy fats from sources like olive oil, avocados, or nuts, used sparingly. The meal should be low in sodium, no more than 500 to 600 milligrams for the entire meal, which means cooking at home without adding much salt and avoiding processed foods. The meal should be moderate in size, not the largest meal of the day. Your body handles food better earlier in the day when metabolism is more active. A perfect example would be grilled salmon with lemon and herbs, a large salad with mixed greens, tomatoes, cucumbers, and a light olive oil dressing, steamed broccoli or roasted Brussels sprouts, a small portion of quinoa or brown rice, and fresh berries for dessert. This meal eaten at 5:30 or 6 p.m. provides excellent nutrition, keeps blood sugar stable, doesn't spike triglycerides excessively, is low in sodium so it doesn't raise blood pressure, and is light enough that digestion is mostly complete before bedtime. By the time you go to sleep at 10 p.m., your blood sugar is back to baseline, your triglycerides are declining, your blood pressure can drop normally, and your cardiovascular system can rest and repair without the burden of processing a heavy meal. Let me tell you what happened when Frank Morrison changed his evening meal pattern. After his heart attack, Frank was motivated to do whatever it took to prevent another one. I explained the science of meal timing and composition. Frank and his wife completely restructured their eating schedule. They started eating their main meal at lunch around noon or 1 p.m. This was when they'd have their larger portions of protein and carbohydrates if they wanted them. For dinner, they shifted to eating at 5:30 p.m., and the meal was always light and vegetable-focused. Often it was fish with vegetables, or a large salad with beans, or vegetable soup with whole grain bread. No heavy meats, no rich gravies, no big desserts in the evening. Within 3 months, Frank's cholesterol improved. His blood pressure, which had required 3 medications, improved so much he was able to reduce to 2 medications. His overnight blood pressure monitoring showed that he now had proper nighttime dipping instead of sustained high pressure all night. Most importantly, Frank felt better. He had more energy. He slept better. And 2 years later, he has not had another cardiac event. His cardiologist says his heart function has actually improved, which is rare after a heart attack. If this video has already opened your eyes to how your evening meals might be affecting your heart health, imagine what else you might learn. Subscribe to this channel because I'm bringing you evidence-based strategies for preventing heart attacks and strokes that go beyond the generic advice of eat healthy and exercise. Every video here gives you specific, actionable protocols backed by the latest research. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and let's protect your heart together. So what should you do starting today? First, shift your dinner time earlier if possible, aiming for at least 3 hours before bedtime. Second, make dinner your lightest meal of the day, not your largest. Third, Focus dinner around vegetables and lean proteins, minimizing heavy fats and refined carbohydrates. Fourth, reduce sodium at dinner by cooking at home and not adding salt. Fifth, if you must eat later, make absolutely sure it's a very light meal. Perhaps soup and salad, nothing heavy. Before you go, I want to say thank you for watching. If you learned something that could protect your heart, I need you to do 3 things. First, subscribe to this channel for weekly cardiovascular protection strategies. Second, hit that notification bell. And third, share this video with anyone over 60, especially those with heart disease or diabetes. This information about protective evening meals could literally save a life. Together, we're building a community of informed people taking control of their heart health. I'm here every week. Subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Let me leave you with this. Your heart is working for you 24 hours a day, but it's most vulnerable while you sleep. Give it the gift of an easy night by choosing the right evening meal at the right time. Comment one of 3 things. Changing dinner tonight if you're going to implement this starting today, need meal ideas if you want specific recipes, or already doing this if you're already eating this way. Comment now. Thank you for being here. Your heart matters. Protect it wisely. I'll see you in the next video.